Zebediah Killgrave was working as a spy for the communists when he was given a mission to steal an experimental American nerve gas. During this theft, a canister of this substance was released, engulfing the man in the nerve agent. This turned Zebediah's skin purple. Caught during the robbery, he was captured by an American soldier. Killgrave gave a weak story to his captors and was surprised when they believed him and released the spy. After several other similar incidents, it became apparent to Zebediah that he had gained the ability to control the will of others thanks to exposure to the nerve agent. Taking on the name of the Purple Man, Zebediah gave up his old life as a spy, fled to America, and began a criminal career. There he met a woman named Melanie. On a whim, Purple Man used his powers to make the woman fall in love with him and forced her to marry the man. Eventually, Killgrave fell in love with her and released Melanie from his control, in the hope that she would truly love him as well. Instead, she was horrified at his actions and fled to Toronto. Killgrave never pursued her, and months later, Melanie gave birth to a girl named Kara. When she turned 13, she developed the same purple skin and similar powers to her father. Kara took on the moniker of the Purple Girl and joined the Canadian team of the superheroes known as Alpha Flight. Meanwhile, Zebediah had begun his criminal career in force, using his powers to rob a bank and forcing people to do anything he wanted. By now, he had become intent on using his powers to rule the entire world, but he would come into conflict with Daredevil after Zebediah captured Murdoch's legal secretary, Karen Page. Matt Murdock had a willpower strong enough to overcome the Purple Man's powers, and Killgrave was sent to prison. Zebediah was kept in a special cell filled with gas that dampened his powers, until the apparatus that pumped the gas into his cell malfunctioned. He was able to escape, and the man fled to San Francisco. There, Killgrave began a criminal empire, and he found himself in conflict with Daredevil once more. Teaming up with Electro, the two tried to defeat Matt Murdock, and they both wound up losing to him and Black Widow. Zebediah managed to escape this time, fleeing to the Midwest United States, only to run into Hawkeye and suffer yet another loss. After this, he returned to New York City. There, Purple Man began taking a more subtle approach, and began having crimes committed on his behalf through a CEO of a major company, a man named Maxwell Glenn. Glenn was caught for his crimes, and, sure enough, Daredevil discovered that the Purple Man was behind this. The crime fighter was captured and taken to Rikers Island prison, where the Purple Man announced that he had discovered that his enemy was blind, and even correctly guessed Daredevil's secret identity as Matt Murdock. Zebediah then tried to have several villains attack Daredevil, but Matt emerged victorious, and Killgrave was knocked into the sea, where it seemed as if he had drowned. The Purple Man survived this encounter, but it changed him. Defeated 3 times now by Matt Murdock, he realized there was no need to bother with criminal conspiracies and superheroes. With his powers, he could get anything he wanted. For a time, he retired from villainy and began to enjoy a life of hedonism. Though this may sound harmless, given the nature of his powers, Killgrave committed many atrocities during this time. Once, 34 people at a restaurant were all killed when Zebediah told them to stop breathing so he could enjoy his meal in peace. It was also during this time that he was discovered by a superhero known as Jewel, whose real name was Jessica Jones. He overpowered the young woman's mind. She stayed under his control for a staggering 8 months, during which he tortured her mentally and forced her to strip for him whenever he felt like it. Though according to Jessica, he never actually raped the young woman, he did make her beg for sex, and Killgrave made her hurt many people during this time. At the end of these many months, he saw a front-page newspaper article on how Daredevil saved New York City and sent Jessica away in a fit of rage, ordering her to kill the vigilante. Still brainwashed, the woman wandered the city and attacked Scarlet Witch in a state of confusion. The Avengers managed to subdue the woman, and Jessica learned that she was brainwashed. The heroes had Jean Grey alter Jessica's mind so that Killgrave could never control her again. However, the damage was already done. Jones was so traumatized by these events that she retired from being a superhero and began a new life as a private investigator. One day, Killgrave's car was hit by two thugs who were transporting some heroin. Enraged, the Purple Man forced these two goons to fight one another, and as a result, the two men were arrested. Zebediah did not realize that these two criminals worked for the Kingpin, and Purple Man was forcibly brought to Wilson Fisk. There, Zebediah learned that the Kingpin also had too strong a willpower to be controlled, and Killgrave was forced to work for Fisk. With the Kingpin, the two nearly managed to successfully orchestrate the death of several New York City-based heroes. As Purple Man's powers had naturally increased in strength over time, and with the aid of a powerful sound system to amplify his voice, not even Daredevil could resist Killgrave's powers. However, Moon Knight was able to defeat Purple Man with the simple use of earplugs, and as a result, Killgrave found himself in police custody once more. Purple Man somehow escaped prison yet again and fled to an island in Polynesia. There, he was captured by Dr. Doom. Victor managed to craft a device that amplified Killgrave's powers to affect the entire planet. Using this technology, Doom was able to take control of almost every human being on Earth, compelling them to obey Doom and giving the villain complete control of the world. Luckily, the Avenger known as Wonder Man was not affected by this due to his unique physiology. The hero was able to free Captain America from Doom's control, and together, they freed other superheroes. One of those they saved was Namor, who was so furious at being enslaved by Dr. Doom that he smashed Doom's device, seemingly killing Purple Man and freeing the world in the process. Once again considered dead to the world, Zebediah was able to survive, discovering that in addition to his mental control, the nerve gas also gave him a rather substantial healing factor. However, he found himself possessed by a being called the Dream Queen. It forced him to take over an army of zombies and travel to Canada. Confronting his ex-wife and daughter, he threatened to kill Kara until he was knocked into a furnace by her in an act of self-defense. Surviving this as well, again thanks to his healing factor, Killgrave returned to his old goal of global domination. He began to subtly influence people into thinking that X-Man, a mutant from an alternate timeline named Nate Gray, was a miracle worker, elevating the mutant to celebrity status. This ultimately backfired and forced Killgrave back into hiding, only for the man to wind up in a specially designed prison for supervillains known as the Raft, after he was defeated by the superhero team known as the Defenders. Jessica Jones would encounter this villain again after being hired by some of Purple Man's many victims. They were hurt by various actions over his many years of villainy and abusive control of others. They wanted her to get Zebediah to admit to at least some of the many terrible things he had done, but was never convicted for. So Jones agreed to attempt this and traveled to the Raft. Meeting with Killgrave, he delighted in tormenting Jessica during this talk, refusing to admit his guilt for various crimes and instead insisting that he and Jessica were just characters in a comic book. Jones gave up after talking to the villain for a while and left, only to learn that Zebediah escaped during a prison riot shortly afterwards. One night later, the villain manipulated the woman into thinking her boyfriend at the time, Scott Lang, was dead, and tormented the woman with her worst nightmare. He then decided to get the attention of other superheroes. Taking Jessica to a crowded street, he tells everyone in the area to beat up the person on their left, until that person is dead. This causes the street to erupt into massive violence, sparking the arrival of the Avengers. Killgrave then ordered Jessica to attack the other superheroes, but thanks to Jean Grey's earlier help, Jones is able to resist this order and instead brutally attacks the Purple Man. Once more, Killgrave is sent to prison. Never one to be jailed for very long, Zebediah nearly managed to escape again when Electro staged a massive breakout. Encountering Luke Cage and several other heroes who came in to quell the situation, the Purple Man delighted at this opportunity and ordered the man to kill the other superheroes. By this time, Luke had married Jessica, and knowing this, Killgrave was all too eager to torment Luke by threatening her and their unborn child. Unfortunately for Zebediah, the prison staff had been feeding him food laced with drugs that negate his powers, and Luke, knowing what this man has done, and none too happy with the man's threats and orders, promptly beat the villain half to death. Later, Zebediah was recruited by Baron Zemo to test his new team with Thunderbolts. Using powerful artifacts known as the Moonstones, Killgrave escaped prison without anybody noticing. Though this was only supposed to be a simple test, Zebediah used this opportunity to torture various members of the Thunderbolts and attempted to rape Songbird. The Purple Man was also later able to take control of the entire city of New York and began what he called the Purple Reign. While he forced the Thunderbolts to fight one another, he used many other superheroes as his own personal army, and in his words, as cannon fodder. Luckily, the Thunderbolts regrouped and put an end to his villainy, and in retaliation, Baron Zemo tortured Killgrave before sending him back to the raft. The Purple Man remained here until civil war broke out among the superhero community. He was able to use this incident to take over an entire squad of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and flee to Canada. He was nearly stopped by the US agent, but Zebediah was able to critically injure the hero and easily escaped. The Purple Man resumed his usual activities after this, quietly taking over a casino and working with the villain known as the Hood, only to be incarcerated yet again, this time by the new Avengers. He nearly escaped when he was being used as part of a training exercise for Avengers Academy, but was once again stopped when he ran into Luke Cage, who, at the time, was leader of the Thunderbolts. Thanks to the nanites used by that program, Luke was immune to Purple Man's influence, and Zebediah was easily defeated and sent back to the raft. During the events of Fear itself, the Juggernaut was possessed by a being known as Kurth, Breaker of Stone. With this new power, Kurth easily broke out of the raft, freeing Purple Man and many others in the process. Killgrave used this opportunity to try and murder a comatose puppet master, revealing that he was behind a plan where he used Puppet Master to manipulate the superhero team known as Heroes for Hire, starting a criminal empire. The heroes Elektra and Shroud were able to stop Killgrave, but the Purple Man is able to distract them by creating a prison riot, and Zebediah successfully escapes. Now free once more, Killgrave tries to start a criminal empire of his own, recruiting several villains into a team he called the Villains for Hire. They came into conflict with a woman named Misty Knight, but ultimately, the Villains for Hire were defeated, and the group was disbanded. Zebediah then moved on to a scheme he had been working on for years. Throughout his career in villainy, Killgrave had been secretly keeping track of the many children he had fathered through the various women he had forced to have sex with him. Killgrave gathered these children one after another, bringing a total of 5 of them together in San Francisco. He planned to use these children to rule entire nations, but, now collected, the purple children were strong enough to overpower their father, and they forced the man to walk in front of a train. Killgrave survived this incident thanks to his healing factor and managed to escape police custody as his children began causing chaos. He came across Daredevil, who was also overpowered by the purple children and lying in a gutter as an emotional wreck. Delighted at this opportunity for revenge, he started to viciously beat the man, but Matt managed to recover and scare the villain off. Killgrave then set about following his children, discreetly taking them down one by one. Daredevil was able to save them from being killed by their father. Matt then blasted the area with loud music, so Purple Man could not be heard, and therefore the police were able to arrest the villain without being controlled by his superpowers. While Zebediah will always be the way he is, his children were separated and returned home, if they still had a home to go back to. Once this happened, they returned to normal and began to lose their powers. A few other alternate versions of Purple Man have appeared in the comics. In an alternate future, Killgrave was elected President for Life of the United States, using his powers to remain in office for decades. Captain America, Daredevil, and Spider-Man tried to stop him, only to be defeated and executed. Steve Rogers was sent back in time to prevent his remains from being used as a symbol for anyone else who might try to rebel. But Steve somehow survived this ordeal, and as a result, the Marvel 1602 timeline was created. In the alternate world of Daredevil, End of Days, Zebediah operated as a villain similar to his mainstream counterpart until he was shot in the head by the Punisher. Purple Man also appeared in the House of M storyline, but in this alternate universe, Killgrave was never given his iconic purple skin, although he may have retained his ability to influence others. In this world, he worked as a lobbyist for the mutant-controlled government and was Earth's chosen ambassador for negotiations with the alien race known as the Kree. Secretly, Killgrave worked as an operative for the human resistance movement. It is unknown where his loyalties truly lied. Purple Man has appeared in a few television series as well, including the 1990s X-Men and Spider-Man cartoons, Wolverine and the X-Men, and Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. In the latter, he was voiced by Brent Spiner. Killgrave was also depicted by David Tennant in the Netflix series Jessica Jones. Purple Man and his children all have similar abilities concerning mind control through the use of pheromones. The nerve gas Killgrave was exposed to has altered his genetics to emit unique chemicals that strip away a person's willpower, forcing them to follow his commands. This mutation seems to have been inherited by all of his children. Zebediah can also use these abilities to implant false memories, beliefs, and create hallucinations, and his commands are often interpreted by his victims as their own thoughts. This power comes from the man's skin cells, which reflects why it looks purple. Killgrave can manipulate many people at once and has brought hundreds of people under his control at the same time without any aid or apparent difficulty. These effects only last when he is physically present. When enough distance and time has been put between Purple Man and his target, the chemicals will disperse and the mental control will fade. The amount of time it takes for a target to be freed depends on individual metabolic levels in the victims. Certain people, like Daredevil, Dr. Doom, or the Kingpin, have exceptional willpower and can resist Purple Man's mind control, while others, like Simon Williams, have an altered physiology that makes them immune to Killgrave's abilities. Non-organic beings are also immune to Killgrave's influence, for obvious reasons. With the aid of mechanical or technological devices, many of Killgrave's limitations do not apply. For example, when controlled by Dr. Doom's device, Killgrave was able to take control of the entire planet, and with it, billions of people. While Zebediah himself has used devices like this to take over an entire city, and in an alternate timeline, an entire country. Killgrave also has a healing factor. He was able to survive trauma that would kill a normal person, and is able to rapidly heal from most non-fatal injuries. When these injuries are severe, his body will enter into a death-like state to allow for a full recovery. Killgrave is also a very charismatic and intelligent person, which makes him more effective in using his powers. Though he is a former spy and has considerable knowledge related to espionage, Purple Man has very poor fighting skills and prefers to have others fight for him. Killgrave also managed to obtain the chemical that gave him his powers. He used this to create a substance that can be used to control other people in a similar way to Purple Man's own abilities. He has given this gas to his own underlings so they can control people in his absence. Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my origins and bio for Purple Man. Well, this was fun. I'm sure you all know why we're here, but if not, it felt like a cool way to celebrate the launch of the Netflix series Jessica Jones. I haven't watched every episode of this show as of this recording, but man, what I've seen has been awesome, and the fact that Purple Man will not only be a major character, but that he's also being played by David Tennant is really exciting. As a Doctor Who fan, I'm really looking forward to seeing this, and I thought it would be fun to cover this villain's history, particularly that history concerning Jessica Jones. I've got to say, in general, Purple Man is a pretty intense villain. Oh sure, there are many bad guys in the world of comics. You've got your psychopaths, your maniacal geniuses, your whatever the hell this is, but few if any villains are just outright rapists. Now sure, this is a delicate issue, and comics haven't always treated this subject well or appropriately, but a villain who just rapes and abuses women so casually is pretty damn sinister. I think it's a good way to confront this issue and deal with it. There's no reason to be afraid of rape or to mythologize it, and there's definitely nothing wrong with highlighting why it is something to be fought against. It gives what would otherwise be a pretty ridiculous villain a lot of realistic grittiness and a bit of an intimidation factor. He's a creepy, brutal, and just totally messed up person. I love to watch this guy fail, and that's a good character to follow. He's a reasonably well-written villain that I love to hate, and on the whole, it makes for a compelling character and often creates a tense story. It's cool to have a guy with some pretty big powers for a street-level villain. This is the sort of person we normally see go against the entire team of the X-Men, not somebody like Daredevil or Jessica Jones. And that makes him much more dangerous and a plausible threat to the heroes he fights. So yeah, he's pretty cool in his own creepy way. Like I said, this character works because I love seeing him be set up as this big menace, only for someone like Luke Cage to come along and beat the living snot out of him. That's a good supervillain, and he's definitely one of the creepier examples of an antagonist I've encountered in a comic book. Not the creepiest, but certainly one of them. If you want to see more of him, I recommend you check out the Alias comic series that details the complicated, abusive relationship he has with Jessica Jones, or Mark Waid's run on Daredevil, which presents Purple Man in an eerie, Children of the Corn kind of way. Both were great stories that I really enjoyed. Then, of course, there's the Netflix show, and that's a great way to start, and I highly recommend you check that out for yourself. So far, that series has been awesome, and I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of the episodes. I hope you guys liked this video, enjoy the Jessica Jones show on Netflix, and let me know if there's any other characters you'd like for us to cover in our Origins and Bios. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.